Hello and welcome back to Favorite Things. I'm very happy to announce that this is time for the 2025 State of the Collection video. It's mid-June, so kind of middle of the year. I'm very happy with my current collection and I'm excited to show you. And I'm also going to talk about some near temptation purchases that I was able to successfully resist. So let's check it out. My collection of non-wearing heritage watches is the same. If you want to see those pieces in detail, go back and check out my previous year's videos. Without further ado, here it is. I'm down to a 3-watch rotation: the Explorer 114270, the Hamilton Khaki Mechanical, and the Omega Ranchero built from authentic new old stock parts. This Casio W400 is here just because it's a spare, and my actual W400 that I got as a kid in 1984 is in the Carolina case. I sold the Omega Railmaster Trilogy and I don't miss it. I'm not interested in the new generation Omega Railmaster that was released in May of this year. I'm actually glad it has many of the same features that led me to sell my Generation 2 36mm Railmaster 2504, such as the return of the Aquaterra style handset with broad arrow minute hand instead of the broad arrow hour hand, the exhibition caseback with lyre lugs. On top of that, I don't care for the gradient fume dials, the 38mm size, or the high polished center links on the bracelet, and the butterfly deployment clasp, and the thicker case size. It's funny, the version with the small seconds hand dial could be considered the Ranchero reissue that I've been hoping for so many years, but it just has too many features that I'm not a fan of. You may have seen that I had 2 Rancheros for a little while, but I sold the earlier one, and with the exiting of the Ranchero and the Railmaster Trilogy, the new old stock Ranchero has elevated to a very high status in my collection. It's nearly my perfect Omega Trilogy type watch. It took 8 years, but I basically corrected the error of selling my first Ranchero when I bought the Trilogy Railmaster from my Omega boutique. If I would have known about the 18mm flat link bracelet options back then, there's a good chance I could have avoided my Railmaster adventure altogether. I love the colors on the dial, the case condition. I love hand winding the recently serviced caliber 267 movement. It still has that radiation issue because of the radium dial, but since it's not waterproof, it's not an everyday watch, so the radiation is not really an issue. It's a special occasion watch. And whenever it's on my wrist, it's nearly impossible for me to resist taking wrist shots in different places. I have it on what I think is the best flat link bracelet combination. It's so comfortable with its thin flat link design with stretch links. It doesn't pinch hairs, and at only 60 grams, it's light, and I don't feel the weight when I'm moving my wrist around like I do when I was wearing my 130-gram Trilogy Railmaster. What about my other vintage Omegas? Well, I sold my manual wind Omega Admiralty. I just wasn't wearing it much. I recently had it serviced, but the feel of the winding crown did not tighten up like I was hoping it would. I really like that super clean matte dial. When this earlier Ranchero sold, in my mind I put a target on the Admiralty as the next one that would be sold. I did get a good price for it, so all is good. And as for the blue-dialed Omega Genève 041 that was on loan with my brother, well, he stopped wearing it, so I listed it and it's sold. I'm still enjoying the 38mm Hamilton Khaki Field Mechanical. I'm working on slimming down the strap collection for it though. I've sold most of the straps that I featured on my strap showcase video. I've returned to the green Hamilton canvas strap. Besides my adding the quick release spring bars, what made a huge improvement to my wearing experience is this little leather movable keeper. You see, the original canvas lined keeper got frayed to near destruction. I had an extra leather strap that I donated the keeper from to this Hamilton, and it was a huge improvement. It doesn't move around, it's strong and sturdy, and it looks super cool. More eclectic and utilitarian. I mean, who can argue with the durability of leather for the keeper? The military green color, the metal eyelets, the fixed metal keepers, the leather second keeper, and most of all, the taper. And not to mention the Hamilton branded bead blasted buckle. All perfect. And now it's totally broken in. Wearing it just a little bit looser than would be perfect, but it doesn't bug me anymore. I prefer erring on the loose side than too tight. I prefer the olive green straps over my previous choice of khaki colored straps because rather than matching the faux patina lume on the dial and hands, with green straps, those are now accents and somehow more visible. They just pop. The taper adds a slight air of elegance. On my 6 3/4 inch wrist, a non-tapering 20mm bracelet looks a bit too big. Not to mention, the movable keeper almost always floats around since it's not wedged into the tapering strap underneath, like it does on a tapered strap. At 38mm, the Hamilton Khaki still is slightly bigger than I'd like, and I briefly reconsidered a vintage Hamilton GGW 113. Occasionally, clean examples pop up on eBay, and I saw a couple of very nice ones at my local Army surplus store. But the same issues come to light that I had already explored in my previous videos on the military watches. All the pitfalls of servicing vintage movements and the scarcity of parts, such as hands and especially the dial. The modern Khaki is a no-brainer in all those areas. It has a perfect dial that is very legible in the dark thanks to adequate application of modern luminescent paint. I'm not looking to add a watch to my collection, just for something to potentially replace the Hamilton for its place in my collection as the archetypal field watch. I do think that only a 36mm version, with everything else being the same, would get me to part with my 38mm Hamilton. Hamilton did recently release a nice 36mm titanium khaki field as a collaboration with Engineered Garments, but it's automatic and the dial is not quite what I'm looking for. So we'll see, or maybe we won't. A 36mm khaki field mechanical, please. Swatch group, let's make it happen. And finally, there's the Rolex Explorer 114270. I'm still really loving this one. It's on my wrist a lot. I find the bracelet comfortable, convenient, and not too blingy. I never even consider wearing my Explorer on a strap. Every now and then I look around online for an Explorer 1016 for sale, but I would only be interested in the latest ones, like from 1989 or 1990, the R serial numbers. I'd want a clean, crisp dial or even a service dial so I can have working lume. I'd want one of the latest hacking 1570 movements. I even thought about selling both my Ranchero and my Explorer to fund it. But then I look at my Explorer and I love the convenience and the appearance of the flawless sapphire crystal, those modern numbers, and the durability of those solid end links and that sporty flip-lock clasp, all of which would disappear with the 1016, not to mention how careful and mindful I would have to be wearing it. And I just think that the 114270 is just a more robust, more capable, and stress-free daily wearer. I'm really happy with my current rotation, as each of my 3 watches fill a specific role or purpose. The Rolex Explorer is slim enough to be under the radar, to serve as a reliable and significant, yet still everyday watch. The Hamilton is slightly more of a beater watch or a utilitarian strap watch. It serves me as my travel watch, and it's slim enough and tough enough to be very practical. It even crushes the Explorer in terms of nighttime visibility. I don't wear the Casio very often simply because I just can't make out the time without reading glasses, unlike all my other analog watches. And the Ranchero is my special watch, my vintage piece, but that also goes under the radar, pretty much never attracting any attention from anyone besides me, the wearer, and that's just fine. I wear it on special occasions or when I just want to reward myself with something a bit different that's not an everyday wearer. So I now have successfully overcome the comparison anxiety, which I have discussed in some of my earlier videos, as the remaining watches in my collection are distinct enough in their properties and roles in my rotation. But also, each of these remaining watches carries with it my previous experiences with many similar watches that came before them. For example, my Explorer satisfies my Datejust admiration that started my whole ownership experience with Rolex. But also, with its sporty oyster bracelet, legible white on black dial, and Mercedes handset, it also fulfills my sports Rolex appetite as well, including Submariners, GMT Masters, Explorer 2s, and yes, even the 1016 that I've never owned. For me, the Explorer homages to all those previous models that I had the good fortune to wear in the past. The Omega Ranchero, on the other hand, represents the multiple Railmasters, past Rancheros, the Trilogy Seamaster 300, and many other Omega models that were in my collection in the past. Not to mention, as a bonus, it also gives me the vintage Explorer 1016 vibe with its matte black dial, steel bracelet, and acrylic crystal. Finally, the Hamilton Khaki harkens back to my very first real analog watch, the many field watches I've tried, and even field watches that I've never tried, such as the Timex Camper MacGyver watch. So there it is. There's the state of the collection at 2025 mid-year. At this rate, I think that the 2026 video is going to be very similar. It might be just a reference to this video and some words of thanks. But we'll see how it goes. And with that, I thank you very much for joining me and have a great rest of the year. Take care.